Hey guys, what's up? Marcelo Vieira here again. If you don't know me yet, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to give your thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon because here I'll always be bringing some of the most helpful WordPress tutorials to you. Well, in today's tutorial, I want to talk about a very useful WordPress tool, which is called the Theme Customizer. The Customizer is a super powerful API that allows us to create a series of controls that have native WordPress support, such as checkboxes, text boxes, text areas, page dropdowns, different types of inputs, and so on and so forth. In addition, the WP Customized Control class can be extended to create new types of controls, and someday I'll come back here to talk about that class. I use the Theme Customizer in all of my projects, and I make a point of including a section dedicated to this theme in all of my courses and books as well. Generally, is the content that students are more eager to learn because the potential it brings to any WordPress theme is fantastic, as you'll see today. You can really empower your theme users so they don't have to make much effort to make small adjustments to the theme. In the card above, there's a video where you can see a more practical use for this tool. The tutorial on today's video is more like a base for those who have never heard of the Theme Customizer, alright? And of course, there's the WordPress documentation itself you can always check. So before I start creating anything, I will of course show you how this WordPress tool works, especially for those who have never seen it before. First of all, let's go to the WordPress admin. Let's go over to the appearance menu, customize option. So this tool is very versatile and allows us to make changes to the theme and see them reflected on the right side of the screen. So this is the great potential we have when we use it. Well, here on the right side, we have the preview area where you can see the theme itself. This area is highly dynamic, okay? So I have a theme that I use in one of my courses to teach how to create a theme. And right now it's active here. It's not the final version of the theme, but it can be used as an example for this tutorial. So for example, if I click here on this link, I can actually go to a new page. And on the left side, we have several elements that help us modify specific areas of the theme. The elements that we see on the left side are called sections or panels. The name will depend on a very simple detail. For example, let's click here on site identity. Here I can see a couple of fields. Here we have all the controls that relate to the site identity, such as the site's title, description, the logo. So every time I click on one of these elements and it's displaying fields, I know that a section has been opened, alright? Now my WordPress has Woocommerce installed. So I have this item here, Woocommerce, but it's not a section, okay? Instead, it's a panel. I know this because if I click here, I can see more elements similar to the ones in the previous page. That is, these 4 options here are the sections inside a panel called Woocommerce. When I click to open one of them, that's where I see the fields related to each specific section. So the organization of the customizer is the following. We have panels, but only sometimes. It's not a rule. Inside them, we have sections. And inside the sections, we always have fields. WordPress calls those fields controls. Again, sometimes there are no panels in a theme, okay? But there are always sections and inside them, controls. This tutorial will not cover panels, okay? I never include panels in my explanation because it's like complex enough to explain how all this customizer structure fits together. The WordPress documentation itself discourages the use of panels in a theme. Now back here to the controls. So they can be of several types. They can be text fields, checkboxes, upload buttons, color pickers. There are many possibilities. Besides the native ones, there are still some custom libraries that add fields that are not yet in the native version of WordPress. And one of these days I'll make a tutorial talking about those libraries. Well, another very interesting thing about the tool is the possibility to see how our layout will be presented on several different devices. So here on the side, I can see how the theme is displayed on a desktop. If I click here on this button, I can see how the site looks like on a tablet and on a smartphone. Well, basically, that's what we have with the customizer. Okay, for this tutorial, we'll see how to add a simple field, a text field in the theme. I have chosen this type of field because it can be a perfect example for you to see how the customizer works and in the least traumatic way, let's say. Once you learn the basics, you can start to create other fields that are a little more complex. For the rest, the WordPress documentation has examples for just about everything. So let's suppose you want the theme user to be able to change the copyright text of the theme. This one here, for example, in the footer. It can be another part of the theme, okay? I'm just giving this one as an example. For starters, let's open our code editor. I will work with this folder called Fancy Lab, which is from the theme I teach in my course. But you can use your own theme folder, alright? In the case of my theme, I have a lot of code already in place. And I also have this folder called ink. And here inside it, I'm going to create a new file called customizer.php. This is where we'll be creating all the necessary fields, alright? But since this is a file that is not automatically included in the initial WordPress loading process, we need to require it within the functions.php file. This one, functions.php, is loaded automatically. So we do a require once, and we just call the file. First, I call the function that will retrieve the themes directory, this one here. The function is get template directory. And concatenate this with the string /ink/customizer.php. Don't forget this trailing slash, okay? Alright, let's save this. Now in customizer.php, let's start creating something. First, let's just open the PHP tag. You don't need to close it, okay? Let's create a function. The name of this function can be whatever name you want. In my case, I will call this function fancy_lab_customizer. Just to match the name of the theme I have active here. Here inside the parentheses, I will pass an object, a variable called WP_customize. This is an object from the WP Customize Manager class that in turn controls this WordPress API, the theme customizer. Well, let's recap some basic details that I mentioned earlier in this video. If we just forget about the panels, we can say that the theme customizer is made up of sections, and inside each section we have one or more controls, alright? So first, let's create a section. Just pay a lot of attention to the structure that I will explain to you now. At first glance, it looks very complicated and it can really confuse a lot. But once created, it can be copied and pasted for you to create the other sections and then the other controls. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to call the object WP Customize. And it will start by calling a method named add_section that will help us create a section. Okay, now inside this add section, we have to inform two things. First, a name or an ID for the section, and then an array. First, the section ID. I always use a name that starts with sec_something because I think it helps a lot not to get lost in the code, so I recommend you to do the same. Now to finish, we pass an array with some arguments. Let's pass two arguments. The first one will be title. Let's type in here copyright settings. And the second argument will be description. The value of this title argument will stay inside the clickable object of the section. So when we click on this object, we'll then see all of the controls, alright? Now a detail that I didn't explain before because it didn't make sense, but now it does. So between the section and the controls, we have the so-called settings. they are responsible for saving the data given in each control into the database. Also, they are used to sanitize, to clean the data that the user enters in each field. Of course, this is so that you don't receive garbage or dangerous data into the database. Without the settings, you can't store data coming from controls in the database. Basically, the structure of the settings is very similar to one of a section. We start with the object. Now, instead of calling add section, we call another method named add setting. Here we also pass two parameters. The first one is the name of the setting, and the second one is an array. For the name of the setting, I also use something like set_something. So set_copyright. Now inside the array, we pass the following arguments. The first is type. This argument is for the type of setting. We can have two types, options and theme modifications, or simply theme mods. If you want more details about the difference between theme mods and options, you can check the link in the video description. In this tutorial, we'll always use theme mod, okay? The second argument is called default and is the default value that appears inside the customizer field. That is, it's only visible in the WordPress admin. There's also a very interesting way to display the default value directly on the front end, as you'll see later. In this case, I will just pass an empty string. And the last one is sanitize_callback. Well, this one will take a little time to explain because it's more complex. Here's the thing. Since we're creating an interface between the theme user and the database, we should never trust the type of data the user will enter. By accident, they may end up entering stuff they shouldn't. So as good developers as we are, we have to always get ahead validating data that the site owner will try to submit to the database via form as much as possible. The Sanitized Callback is nothing more than the name of a function that will sanitize the data entered by the user. For example, let's suppose you create a field for the user to inform the valid ID of a category. You know that usually an ID has to be a number, don't you? But the user may not know, and then try to type letters instead. And then, if your form allows letters instead of numbers, depending on where this information is used, it can break the page. So you have to sanitize this information. WordPress itself already has a series of functions that can be used for this purpose. I will make available to you in the video description a very interesting post that talks about most of those functions. In our case, we'll have a simple text field, and there is a WordPress filter called Sanitize Text Field, which I think is very suitable for this case. What it does is it removes invalid data such as HTML content, white space from the beginning and end of the text, etc. And it only leaves plain text to be inserted into the database. The important thing is that you never leave this field empty, alright? So great, we already have our section created and also our setting. All that is missing is the control itself. To speed things up, let's copy this structure here. I'll change the name of the method to add control. And I'm going to remove these arguments. The first field that needs our attention is this one here. This is for the name of the setting to which this control is linked to. So since this control, which will be a text field, belongs to the setting up here, we pass its name here as a string. So it's already here, set_copyright. So just to recap, this field is the link between the control and the setting. So a lot of attention here, okay? And now let's go straight to the arguments then. The first one is label, and it corresponds to the text that appears before the field. Then we have description. Now the last two deserve a little more attention. Section. Here we must specify the name of the section to which this control is connected, and the name is sec_copyright. This is the link between the control and the section. It also deserves a lot of attention. Do you understand why I identify section names and settings with these prefixes? It's because it's easier for me to navigate between the code. And now the last argument, type. This is the type of control or field that we're building. In our case, it will be a text type field. It could also be text area, checkbox, select, radio, etc. You can visit the WordPress Theme Developer's Handbook to learn which fields are accepted, another link that I will make available to you. And now to close this file, let's add an action to fire this function that we just created. So add action, and this function needs to be triggered on an action hook called customize_register. And here in the second parameter, we indicate the name of our function, Fancy Lab Customizer. Okay, let's save. And we can see if everything is working. Let's go to the customizer. We have here the section we just created. And since we didn't pass a default value, the field is empty. Let's change the value for this field. And save it. So at this moment, the field value has been saved in a WordPress table called WP Options. So with each change I made in the field, the data will be updated in the database. There's only one way to get this value from the database and display it on the screen. Let's open up our footer.php file then, which is where the copyright information will stay. You can of course choose another template file, no problems, okay? Let's delete this text here, create a paragraph, and to call the field is very easy. Let's use the getThemeMod function. This function is used to retrieve the value of the theme mod type of settings, hence its name, getThemeMod. And I want to give to it the name of the setting that is saved in the field. So let's go back to the customizer file. So in our case, the setting is called set_copyright. Let me copy it and paste it. For the value to be displayed on the screen, we just do an echo here. I can pass a second parameter to this function specifying a default value that should appear on the front end when the field is not yet defined. This usually happens when you install and activate the theme for the first time, as there is nothing saved in the database until the moment the user clicks on the publish button, nothing will display. So by passing a second parameter here, I can guarantee that something will show up on the screen even if there is no value yet stored in the database. So let's give it this text. Let's save it. And let's see if it's working. First, let's check the theme. Perfect. Here's our text. Now let's reopen the theme customizer and let's type in some text. Look how cool. The preview area is refreshing and the field is updating according to what I type here. Very cool. So we have our first field working in Customizer. Isn't it great? Now, based on what you've learned so far, you can start thinking about lots of possibilities for your own themes. What do you think of the idea? Well guys, that was it then. I hope you liked the tip. If you did, don't forget to give your thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave your comments down below. Also, don't forget to check out my courses with more than 18,000 students enrolled only on Udemy. You'll get a huge discount if you enroll using the link in this video. And don't forget to check out my new book, The Web Developer's Guide to WordPress as well. All the links are in the video description just below. So, thanks for watching and see you next time.